All right, let's talk about something that's quietly powering a massive chunk of our digital world. Seriously, from huge company systems to the apps right on your phone, there's a good chance .NET is involved. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify it.
But first, let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered how a developer can write one single application and have it just work on a Windows PC, a Mac, and a Linux machine without having to rebuild the whole thing from scratch for each one? Well, the answer to that little puzzle is exactly why .NET is so important.
So to really get to the bottom of that, we first have to figure out what .NET actually is. And just a heads up, it's not a programming language. It's way more than that. It's an entire ecosystem built to solve that exact write once, run anywhere problem.
Okay, so at its core, .NET is a free open-source framework that creates what we call a managed environment for apps. The best way to think about it is like a protective bubble. Your code doesn't talk directly to the operating system, which can get messy and dangerous. Instead, it runs inside this controlled bubble, and that bubble handles a ton of the complicated stuff for the developer.
And the sheer variety of things you can build with it is just incredible. I mean, look at this. Developers are using .NET for literally everything. You've got your high-speed web apps and cloud services, the mobile and desktop apps we all use, and it's even making huge waves in super advanced fields like AI and the Internet of Things. It's a real workhorse of the software world.
So, how in the world does .NET pull all this off? How does one chunk of code just work everywhere? Well, the secret sauce, the real magic, is in its core engine, the part that's doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes.
And that engine is called the Common Language Runtime, or CLR for short. Just think of the CLR as this super sophisticated virtual machine. It acts like a universal translator and a project manager all rolled into one. It's this middle layer that sits between your app and the actual operating system, and it's the key to making that whole write once, run anywhere dream a reality.
This process is just brilliant. See, when a developer compiles their code, say in C#, it doesn't get turned directly into code for Windows or for macOS. Nope, it's compiled into something called intermediate language, or IL. This IL is a generic universal language. Then, when you go to run the app, the CLR's just-in-time compiler steps in, looks at the IL, and translates it into the specific machine code for whatever system you happen to be on, right at that very moment.
But the CLR does so much more than just translate. It's also a fantastic manager. For instance, it handles something called automatic memory management, or garbage collection. This is huge. It prevents these awful bugs called memory leaks, where an app just keeps eating up more and more memory until it eventually crashes. The CLR just cleans up the mess automatically, which makes apps way more stable and lets developers focus on actually building cool stuff.
This whole manager role is so important that it basically creates two totally different categories of code. Let's break down what that really means.
Okay, so here's the key difference. Code that runs under the watchful eye of the CLR is called managed code. This is the world of .NET. But then you have languages like C++, which produce unmanaged code. That code runs wild, directly on the operating system. The developer is on their own, responsible for every little detail, including memory. Basically, the CLR gives you a powerful safety net that unmanaged code just doesn't have.
Now, this idea of a managed environment was a total game changer. But the .NET we know today, this open-source, run-everywhere powerhouse, is actually a pretty recent thing. Its journey from a closed-off, Windows-only tool to what it is now has been nothing short of transformative.
The original .NET framework from back in the day was a Windows-only club. But then, in 2016, everything changed. Microsoft released .NET Core, a total redesign from the ground up that was open source and built to run everywhere. Fast forward to 2020, they brought everything together with .NET 5, getting rid of the confusing names and creating one single modern .NET for everything, a vision that's still going strong with the latest versions.
So that's a nice little history lesson. But why does any of this matter right now? Why is .NET such a big deal in today's software world?
Well, today's .NET is this incredible unified platform. Developers can use it to build for pretty much any device you can think of. It's also ridiculously fast and efficient, which is perfect for those huge cloud applications that are built out of lots of small, independent services. Plus, it's completely open source with a huge community behind it. And it's trusted by thousands of companies for their most important mission-critical apps.
This wasn't some happy accident.
This quote from all the way back in 2014 shows they had this vision from the start. Microsoft saw that the future was going to be open and cross-platform, and they made a huge bet on the redesign that became the foundation for the .NET we have today.
And all of this leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. As our entire world becomes more and more dependent on software that has to run everywhere, on every single device, are these unified cross-platform frameworks like .NET going to stop being just an option and instead become the new default standard for how we build the future? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.